friends, welcome to Shift. We are so glad that you're here either in person or online. And if this is your first time, scan this code, fill out the Connect form, and we'll send you some free Opus coffee. Don't forget our next dinner group on July 23rd. We've rented Westside Pool after hours, so we'll have the entire pool to ourselves from 6:30 to 8:30. And the cost is free. And you scan this code to RSVP your spot. So come on, bring food, don't bring food, bring toys, whatever. Just don't miss it. On July 30th, we're having a special screening of the documentary 1946. 1946 is a movie about the translation team that inserted the word homosexual into the Bible for the first time. And don't worry, the kids will have their own fun movie too. Y'all, next month is gonna be so much fun. Once again, we're wrapping up the summer with summer jams, woot woot. Except this time, we're gonna be in the 70s. Bell-bottom jeans, burnt orange, conversation pits, and hard rock. And on August 27th, we're gonna have our 70s cosplay Sunday. So pick your favorite part of the 70s, come dressed up in whatever. I can't wait. It's gonna be groovy. They said that right? That's the 70s, groovy? Yeah. And as usual, that's all of the things for today. So let's jump into week 2 of stuff I'm thinking about.
So for the life of me, I had no idea. I had no idea what to talk about this week. I mean, this whole series is like based on stuff that I'm thinking about, right? But and I'm thinking about a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of things that I want to say. The question is it worth saying, right, out loud? Especially at least right now. And I had no idea what I was going to talk about until I woke up Wednesday morning. Tuesday night, I had this one long, continuous dream, right? And it was like this epic adventure that I was on. And I'm not the greatest sleeper, but every time I woke up, I was like able to jump back into the dream almost as if it was like a different part of the story. And in the dream, I had put together this group of like everyday, regular people. And our mission was to like go find this one particular person, all right? And I don't remember who that person was. And for whatever reason, in the dream, we had to walk. So it was almost like a Lord of the Rings kind of thing, just like now, all right? And I had, because it's my dream, I had magical powers, okay? And in this one part of the dream, my son, Brock, and myself, and one other person were in a tunnel that led into a person's basement. And we were in this basement and we were looking for a door that would like lead into the house. And we found that door. And as we started to go into this house, I instinctively knew that we couldn't allow these people to see us. Like we had to get through the house to get to wherever we were going without being seen. And so I pulled out my magic wand, because who doesn't carry a magic wand, right? So I pulled out my magic wand and I cast a spell that made us basically invisible. And the people there, they were sitting and at their dinner table, and they were eating and drinking and having fun and laughing, and we walked right by them without nary a glance. I'm that good a wizard. So, and I woke up like really disappointed that it wasn't real life, right? But I woke up and thinking about just how awesome that dream was, and how the stuff that I watch, the movies I watch, and the books that I read really kind of feed into all of that. And while I was laying there, it struck me that we all want to live lives of like epic adventures, right? We want to have lives that have deep meaning and significance to them. And I have always wanted that, right? And on top of it, I was told that I was going to have that since the time that I was like elementary school age. I can't tell you how many times someone at my home church told me that God was going to do amazing things for me, or through me. That like God had a plan for my life, and that I was put on this earth for like these great and mighty things. I can remember this specific time when we had these two guys come from my denomination's college, Bible college, they did their thing. And I can remember staying there talking to them, and I was like maybe middle school age, and we were having this conversation. And after the conversation was over, they looked at me and they told me that they could tell that God's Spirit was really on me and that He had big things planned for my life. Like I was going to do awesome things for His kingdom. Now, do you know how good that made me feel? It made me feel great. But do you know how warped that made my thinking? Because I chased that forever. Every time I started at a new church, my first thought was, is this the thing that God's created me for? Is this the one thing I was made to do? And if you've spent any time at church or conferences, you have heard pastors or preachers or speakers say things like that. They would say things like, this generation is going to be the one to rise up and blah, 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 right? Now, I have been in church long enough that I have heard those same people say those things about my parents, and then about me, and then about the kids that were in my youth groups, and then about the kids that those kids are now having from my youth groups, right? The church is just playing the same reruns with the same storylines, playing on this idea that we all want to live lives of great significance. But what if it's all bull? What if it's a lie, right? I want to welcome everybody to Shift, whether you're on person or on the stream. For those that don't know, my name is Joe. I'm the lead pastor. And we are in week 2 of stuff I'm thinking about. Last week we talked about freedom and how easily freedom can be abused, especially by coddled groups like Christians, right? And how none of us are actually free until all of us are free, until our neighbors, and how we participate in bringing that spiritual and physical liberation to all of those around us. Today, I'm thinking about kindness. When I woke up Wednesday morning, all I could think about was how we all want to desperately live our lives in a way that matters, right? We all want our lives to matter. And that even goes into things that like we watch, like the Marvel movies, these superhero movies, they tap into that, the books that we read. Think about those things that we watch, right? Or those stories that we read. It's always about like these everyday kind of people that are overcoming, this great evil, right, against all odds. I think that's the brilliance of Marvel, was that they created these superheroes that had flaws, and you could relate to them, and they spoke into our stories, right? But maybe the church has gotten it wrong. And the question that I have to ask myself is, what if the significance that we're chasing isn't found in like this world-changing, epic, mythical adventure, but it's found in the everyday, right? It's found in the all around us. One of my favorite stories about Jesus is the encounter that he had with a man named Zacchaeus. All right. Now, Zacchaeus was an absolutely hated tax collector in the ancient city of Jericho. And tax collectors were hated for a few reasons. First was he was a Jewish man working for the occupying Roman invaders, right? So he was considered a traitor. Not only that, but tax collectors most likely were, well, you can't say all of them, because I didn't know them all. I didn't know any of them. But typically, what we think we know, is that they were also cheats, all right? Because the Romans wanted a certain percentage of whatever you owned, and the tax collector's job was to get that. And then whatever you took on top of that was for you. And as long as Rome got what it wanted, it didn't care about the rest, right? So he was super hated. Imagine living in the same neighborhood as this person who's collecting your taxes and stealing from you, and seeing their extravagant home and their comfortable lifestyle while you're, just struggling to make ends meet. I mean, that would eat me alive day after day, just seeing that, right? Now, in the account in the book, the Gospel attributed to Luke, we see this story in chapter 19. Now, I'm not going to read through the whole story just yet, or I'm not going to read through the whole story for time, but you should. Oh, you don't have to show that yet. Yeah, you can go back. But what happens is that Jesus comes into town, and if you grew up in church, you know the song, right? Zacchaeus was a wee little man, and a wee little man was he. It doesn't say that he was short. He just climbed up in a tree, right? So the assumption is, he's short because he climbed in the tree. It doesn't say why he climbed up into the tree. Maybe he had extra energy. I don't know. But he climbs this tree because he wants to see this famous rabbi that's coming into town. And Jesus walks up to the tree that he's in and says, hey, Zacchaeus, I need you to come down, all right, because I want to be a guest at your home today. So he does that, right? Now, honestly, if you read the text, the people around are not happy. And I don't think we would be either. Like, we love these stories, but put yourself in their shoes. Like, are you serious? Jesus, do you even realize what kind of scumbag this guy is? That you're going to go to his house? That's the dude you choose? You're going to sit at his table and eat his food that he probably stole out of my mouth while I'm over here doing everything right? That's the guy you want to hang out with? Like, they were furious, right? But that's what he does. Now, if there was a conversation that happened between Jesus and Zacchaeus, they either didn't write it down, they forgot about it, or there wasn't one. Now, I'm imagining that they're sitting together, and there must have been some sort of conversation happening. But what we do know is that Zacchaeus comes up to Jesus and says, hey, I'm going to give half of everything I have to the poor, and then anybody that I stole from, I'm going to repay it 4 times that amount. And then Jesus responds by saying that salvation has come to his house today. Now, in the Greek, the word for salvation is soteria, all right? And it does and can mean like a spiritual salvation that we think about today. But because the church reduces faith to a personal transaction, it misses so much of what that word actually carries. Because the word actually has this connotation of like healing and helping and redemption, all right? So it's not just something that happens between us and the divine. It's something that also happens between us, the divine, and everybody around us, right? Zacchaeus was bringing kingdom come. He was participating in helping righting all of the wrongs that he had created. Imagine, just think about if you were one of the people that he had cheated, and he comes to you with a check 4 times the amount that he stole from you. That's life-changing money, right? I mean, that's like cycle-breaking, life-altering change, right? So it wasn't something that just happened to him. It was something that happened to Zacchaeus. That's epic, right? That's world-changing. I mean, think about it. We're still talking about this otherwise unknown dude 2,000 plus years later, right? But what set it off? What set it off? What caused Zacchaeus to do this like world-changing thing? If you're reading the story, it happens so fast that you might not even notice it. It's in verse 5. Now you can show that, yeah. It's in verse 5. Jesus walks up. It says this, when Jesus came by, he looked up at Zacchaeus and called him by name. Zacchaeus, he said, quick, come down. I must be a guest in your home today. It was kindness. It was kindness. Jesus, this famous rabbi, walks into town, walks up to the most hated man in that town, and asks to have dinner with him. He calls him by his name. It was so offensive to the town people that they were furious about it. But think about what that would have done for Zacchaeus, right? Like shock. You want? Are you talking to me? Is there another? Just shock, maybe some confusion, right? Excitement. Like, holy cow, this dude's coming to my house? You want to come to my house? Right? Maybe a little bit of anxiety because now this guy's coming to my house. I got to throw a party, right? And, you know, he's kind of on the outskirts. Nobody's going to be, I mean, the people that are going to be hanging out with Zacchaeus aren't the ones that are going to be like, coming to your Sunday dinner, right? So the parties may have gotten a little wild. But Jesus, this big, famous spiritual leader, asks to come to my house, to come to his house and hang out with his friends. That one simple act of kindness radically altered this one person's life, which in turn radically altered maybe the entire town's life. And we've been told repeatedly, over and over and over, that we are world changers, chain breakers, spiritual warriors ready to go off into battle, right? That this generation is going to be the one to take back America. Blah, blah, blah. But maybe, right, hear me out. Maybe Jesus is calling us to just be kind. And we've taken this simple message of Jesus and we've turned it into like this mythical epic that none of us can live up to. And so all we do is when we fail, we feel disappointment or emptiness. When we aren't changing the world, when we aren't doing these big, grandiose things for God. But the church keeps doing it because, like, in those charged up moments, when the lights come up and the key chord, the key change happens, right? It feels really good to be told that. And then we spend our time, our spiritual lives, chasing that emotional high. I've come to believe that the most world-changing, chain-breaking, warriorist, is that a word? I don't know. I just made it up. Yeah, warrior-like? Okay, that's better. That I'm called to do is be kind. Is to love others. In a world that desires and often rewards brash and bombastic people, I mean, just evidenced by certain current politicians, maybe the most epic life is the one lived in kindness. My wife, Tori, and I recently started watching the show Ted Lasso. I love that show. Holy cow, I love that show. I love that show. No. I love that show so much. Now listen, it's still not quite The Office. Okay, The Office is still number one, but it's like number two, honestly. It's like it's close, but it's not The Office. All right. There's so much about that show that I love. I love the Ted Lasso character. I love his outlook of life. I love how positive he is. I love how he interacts with his team and the people around him. But he's not my favorite character, all right? This is my favorite character. Can you skip ahead and show yeah. Roy Kent is my favorite character, all right? Roy Kent's my favorite. Now, let's be honest. Let's be honest. He's got a potty mouth, all right? He's got a bit of a potty mouth, all right? He's really rough around the edges, all right? But I love this character so much. And the reason I love this character so much is because he is the perfect example of what kindness can do for a person. Because Ted comes in and he is kind regardless of what Roy thinks, right? Like, he's kind to him. And like, there's a scene in there where he says, like, if we're going to win the heart of this team, it starts with that person right there, right? And so all of a sudden you've got this player at the end of his career. He's really cranky. He's a curmudgeon of a guy. Nobody likes him. Like, he doesn't even like himself, really. You know what I mean? Like, he just hates where he's at. And then because of this kindness, because of this love that he's shown, he all of a sudden becomes like this actual team leader, this actual captain where he rallies the team together. He starts sticking up for the little guy. He even finds love. He even finds love. All because someone took the time to be kind to him. I have long since let go of the idea that I'm here for one big, great, grandiose thing. That was a lot to carry. Like, always wondering, is this the thing? Right? That created a lot of stress and anxiety in me. Because if this was the thing, I couldn't mess up the thing. Because this is what I was here for. Right? But kindness? Love? That doesn't create any stress or anxiety in me. If anything, that fills my cup. That to know that I get to be a part, and it is I get to be a part of these Zacchaeus stories. That I get to be a part of these Roy Kent stories, right? That Shift gets to be a part of creating space for that, for so many others. To me, that's epic. Now, I'm going to ask the band to come back up as we kind of move into a reflection time. And for those that are new, we don't have like an altar call at the end or that emotional moment, that charge moment. What we do instead is we have a moment of reflection. And what I want you to do today is I want you to think about where you feel like you have failed to live up to that call of world changers and let go of that. You're not called to change the world. You're called to kindness. Simple acts of love that change the world for one person. So I'm going to ask a handful of questions to help us guide through that, and then I'll pray, right? The band will start playing in a moment, just so that it's not this awkward silence. But when and if you're ready to partake in communion, that'll be afterwards, and that communion represents that love and that kindness that Jesus lived and was killed for. So that first question that I have is this. Yeah, you guys can, yeah. It's really loud. No, you're good. I told him to do that, so don't, that was, yeah. So that's not his fault. So the first question I have is this. If you've heard this generation is gonna ... kind of teaching, why do you think you bought into that? Like, why did we buy into that kind of teaching? The second question I have for you is this. Just think through this. How is that kind of teaching harmful to you? And how has it, and what has it warped in your life? Why do you think the simpleness of Jesus' love and kindness is the healthier way? Or do you think that? And the last question I have is just like a real practical one. I want you to think like one thing, just like one really tangible, realistic thing. How can you begin to let go of the big and bombastic for the everyday kindness of Jesus? Just think of one thing that you can do in your everyday life where you can let go of that big and grandiose and epic that none of us live up to, and just begin living out that very simple but powerful love and kindness of the way of Jesus. Pray with me. God of love and kindness, I am so thankful for the realization that you do not call us to change the world. You call us to live lives of kindness. So today, help us to let go of those unrealistic expectations and begin being kind to others. There is so much anger and animosity in our culture, people just yelling at each other and nothing getting done. And I pray that we would never participate in that. So give us the strength to be kind when it's so easy to be hateful. You have, God, you've never been interested in converts. You've always been interested in disciples, in people willing to walk your path. And so I ask today that we walk it and we walk it well. May your kindness shine through us and bring healing and redemption to all we encounter. We're so thankful for the simplicity of your message. And let us remember that message as we take these symbols of communion. In your name we pray. Amen.